welcome to the Hatha Yoga Center. I'm Chris, and this is our 7 o'clock beginners class. I think tonight maybe starting in a seated position. So I am sitting on the floor on a yoga block, and you could do that too, or you could sit on a cushion or even on a chair if you'd like. Excuse me. So just to get started, let's just find our seat wherever you are. And I can't see the screen from here, but if you are joining in and you'd like to work on anything at all in particular, you can make a note of that in the comments. So just let yourself be heavy in your seat and feel kind of how your sit bones are grounding into the surface that you're sitting on, and you might kind of bring some sense of evenness into your seat so that you're not sitting more into one side or the other, so that you're not rounding back or leaning forward, but there's just a sense that your spine is balanced. And then just maybe take a couple of shoulder rolls, just rolling your shoulders up and back, feeling how your shoulder blades can come up and down the back of the rib cage, and then just let them kind of slide down, just releasing away from your ears, feeling how your head is balanced right on top of your shoulders. You can feel that your spine has a certain amount of movement in it. You're not totally stuck in an upright position, but there's some curves to the spine, and those are staying intact in your seat. And then start to bring your attention to your breath. So breathing in and out through the nose, which is generally better for your health, but also generally how we breathe in yoga class. And you can also experiment with Ujjayi breathing throughout your practice today, where you close off the back of your throat slightly so that you can just feel and hear the breath a little bit more, so that you can stay focused on your breath while you're practicing the asana or poses of yoga. So feeling heavy, and then feeling how you get this kind of rebound of energy up the spine, lengthening up through the crown of the head. And just take a couple of nice breaths here, breathing a little bit more deeply, coaxing a little bit more breath in, and allowing more breath to leave your body in your exhale. So letting the breath be fuller, a little bit deeper, more complete, in and out through the nose. Feeling how your belly might expand a bit as you inhale, and the diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm, moves down. And then as you exhale, just at the very end of the exhale, you might feel how your belly can draw in to help expel the air. So allowing your belly to move a bit with the breath, feeling how your rib cage expands and contracts with the breath. Feeling the breath a lot in the back of your rib cage. So letting the back of your rib cage expand. It's where most of the movement happens, actually in the back of the rib cage. We feel the breath a lot in the chest, but there's a lot of room in the back for expansion, for our lungs to expand. And we've learned a lot more about that during the COVID-19 time, that it's hard to breathe when you lay on your back, and that they were turning patients over onto their sides to breathe so that the back of the body can expand and the lungs can expand more. And just take like 2 or 3 more breaths here, just bringing your awareness and your attention to your breath. Feeling the luxury of just being able to breathe freely. Some of you might be wearing masks more often, which can make us feel a little bit claustrophobic or like we're not breathing as well. The good news is that we're not losing any oxygen when we wear a mask. They've done a lot of studies on this. And if you have a pulse oximeter, you can put one on your finger and observe that yourself. But it can feel very claustrophobic and unpleasant at times, so just allowing yourself now, you're in the comfort of your own home, to just breathe completely freely and comfortably. And we'll just keep it that way for the rest of tonight's practice. So bring your hands together and clasp your hands and stretch out into the wrists and the forearms and the palms, fingers. You don't have to push too hard, just feeling the stretch. And then release your hands and just move your wrists and your fingers in different ways. You could make a fist and circle it around. And then maybe take one hand and just gently stretch into the hand like this. You'll feel it in your wrist and forearm. Try to keep your shoulders still sliding down so you're not hunching up. In order to do this, you could bend your elbow and then do the other hand. And still let your breath be full. Whenever you start to feel like you're holding your breath, just bring your attention back to your breath. You can back off on what you're doing. Shake your hands out and then just go in the opposite direction. I like to take my thumb like right into the wrist and kind of push a little bit there as I pull my hand back. Just being gentle but feeling that stretch. And then doing the other side. And then shake that out, and then just sweep your arms up. Really spread your hands. Spread your fingers, I should say. You might lift your gaze, reaching up, and then bring your hands back down and bring them behind you, to the floor behind you, with your fingers pointing away from you, and just open up your chest. You could bend your elbows, just leaning back. You can keep the chin kind of tucked. Not a lot of arch in your low back, but feeling your shoulder blades moving and feeling into the upper chest. And then one more time, reach the arms up, lengthening up, spread your hands a lot. And let's do that one more time. Just bring your hands back, down behind you with your fingertips pointing away from you, and open up your chest. You can bend your elbows. You can keep the chin totally tucked or let your head come back. And then release that. And just take some twists from side to side, bringing, say, right hand to the left knee, keeping your shoulders relaxed, and then just going side to side a couple times, turning your spine, keeping the chin pretty much level with the floor, back and forth. And then coming back to center and a little cat-cow in a seated position. So round the spine, let your chin come to your chest. And then arch your back, opening up your chest, let your head come back. And just move with the breath. So exhale, rounding. Inhale, arching. Kind of like a cat-cow. And then in a moment, we'll come to hands and knees and do cat-cow. And then just come back to center. And then just stir your spine around. So let your hips circle. Your ribs are kind of moving with the pelvis in one direction, circling. Let your shoulders be kind of relaxed as you do this. Just kind of feeling through the motion and then circling in the opposite direction. Move your belly with it, like you're doing cat-cow, so kind of drawing your belly in as you come back. And exhale, and then inhale maybe as you come forward. Just one more circle. I'm just coming back to center and just take a breath, and then we're going to come to hands and knees. I don't know who is watching, but I see a couple people. So let's come to our hands and knees, and we'll just bring our shoulders right over our hands and pelvis right over our knees. And then just do some cat-cow stretches, so round the spine, lift the belly. Inhale, tip your pelvis, let the movement ripple up your spine. Inhale, moving like this with the breath through these spinal undulations. And feeling how your belly muscles are also engaging and lengthening and shortening, and just another time or two like that. And then you might come back to tabletop, extend your left leg out with your toes pointing forward, and do a couple of cat-cows with your leg extended out to the side. Just feeling how the pelvis moves a little bit differently in that position. Getting a little stretch in the inner thigh, and then planting your right hand underneath the right shoulder, you could lift the left arm and just lengthen up, stretch up. Keeping your head lifted so you're not compromising your neck, keeping it long. Breathing, and then bring your arm down and step that knee in and step your right leg out with the toes pointing forward. Do a couple of cat-cows in that position. So rounding and exhaling, drawing the navel towards the spine, tipping the pelvis. Inhale, exhale, round. Inhale, tip and arch the back. One more time through. And then come back to center and planting your left hand right underneath the left shoulder and opening up into the twist. And just taking a breath there. And bringing that hand back down and stepping that knee in, and then walk your knees back a bit and your hands forward, coming into prayer pose, lengthening your spine, bringing your forehead down. You could try flipping your hands over so the backs of your hands are on the mat. Maybe you can get the whole back of your hand down, or maybe not. And then flip them back over so the palms are down. And then you could try walking your elbows forward a little bit and stretching into the area underneath the upper arms and the armpit. You could press your fingertips together and palms apart. Finding your nice big breathing in and out through the nose. And then releasing. And coming back to hands and knees. See if you can just move your pelvis here. So keep your upper back still and just try doing a little cat-cow with just your lower back and your pelvis. So tipping your tail and then rounding and lifting your belly. So you're just moving that segment of the spine, the lumbar spine. So trying to keep your head lifted. And then just coming back to tabletop again, to neutral. And then you could try moving your neck, just tip your chin towards your chest, and then bring it back up and extend your neck. And go a couple times through. And then we'll think about some ways to try to get a little bit of movement into the middle of our back. For now though, tuck your toes and draw your hips back towards your heels, stretching the bottoms of your feet. Probably feel that in your ankle joint and in the calves. You might move a little bit. And then come back to prayer and walk your hands over to the left. And just allow your right hip to draw back as you reach. Breathing. You could also flip the right hand over, bringing the back of the right hand towards the floor. And then walking hands over towards the right and drawing the left hip back. So feeling length in your waistline and all the way up through your shoulder, maybe flipping the left hand over. Breathing. then walking hands back to center. And let's come forward, slide forward onto your belly and onto your forearms. And bring your elbows just a little bit out in front of your shoulders. Bring your legs pretty close together. Lift the belly. So your heart is, you're kind of like, you're not sagging down, but you're lifting up and you're pulling your heart forward. So you can feel your belly kind of lengthening. And then the lower back, if it feels compromised here, just feel how you can move towards a tucking position of your pelvis. So your tailbone is kind of lengthening down towards your heels, and that takes some of the compression out of your low back. Find your breath. And then walk your elbows further forward and maybe bring your thumbs or even your palms underneath your chin, your choice, but stretching the front of the skin and tissue in the front of the neck and chin. Kind of massaging it a little bit, sliding your fingers forward, or taking even the heels of your hands and kind of pulling so that you're coming into further extension of your neck. Just be careful if that feels like too much, you can back off. And just another breath there, and then gently release that. You could walk your hands forward, just come into this full prostration, so bring your forehead down and kind of, I'm on a carpet, so I can kind of almost get a little purchase on the floor and like really stretch. Maybe feeling the tops of your feet on the floor. And then we'll sweep the arms back towards the sacrum, clasp your fingers, and roll up. Try keeping the tops of your feet on the floor to begin with. And you could go a little bit side to side, maybe moving like this. Or you can also roll all the way over onto your side. So rolling onto your right side, if you're doing that, you could feel for your left shoulder blade sliding down the rib cage. And your neck is staying long. And then roll onto your belly. And then if you're doing this, roll over onto your left side. You could still be doing the other variation. So feeling your right shoulder blade. And feel how your neck kind of emerges from your shoulders, long and neutral. And then rolling back onto your belly. And then you could try lifting your toes and coming up a little higher, maybe with the hands off your back. Breathing. Nice steady breath. And then just release. And just rock the hips for a moment, side to side. And then bring your hands underneath your shoulders, tuck your elbows in by your sides, and come back up to hands and knees again. And let's do the one where we reach back with our right foot, press through the heel, your toes will be pointing towards the floor, so your sacrum stays level, and then you're going to reach forward with the left arm. Thumb could be pointing up, drawing the belly up and in, breathing, gazes forward. You try lifting the top of your left foot up for a little bit more. Breathing as you're reaching through, feeling your core working, the center of your body, and release. And then just circle your hips in one direction, in the other. Nice steady breath. And then we'll come back to center. We'll reach the left foot back. Toes are pointing straight down. Really press into your left hand and lift up and let your right arm come forward. Thumb pointing up, you could lift the top of your right foot up just a little bit off the floor for more work. It's harder to balance without your foot down. And just another breath. And release that. And circle the hips again. In one direction and in the other. And then tucking your toes, bring your hands about shoulder width, spread your hands, wrap the elbows in and kind of forward, then tuck your toes, bring your hips back, And lift up into downward dog. So that might be with your knees bent quite a bit. You can bend into one knee and the other, walking your dog. Still keep the feeling that you're able to move, to roll the elbows in and slide your shoulders on your rib cage so that you can lift your hips. You don't feel like you're all stuck up in your shoulders. Just another breath there. And then maybe with your knees bent a lot, walk your hands back towards your feet and come into a forward bend. So your feet are hip width. So find your long, neutral spine. So you're hinging forward at the hip, right here. The spine is staying neutral. Let your breath be full and steady. And then bend your knees as much as you need to put your fingertips on the floor and walk yourself out again into your forward bend. Into your downward dog. And in your down dog, you could pick up your right foot and step it over the left foot, bringing the sole of your right foot to the floor and lift your right hip. Keep reaching through your right hand, wrapping that elbow in, feeling length all the way up the right side of your body, kind of lengthening your waistline, separating your pelvis from your rib cage. And then stepping back through center, stepping your left foot over right, bringing the sole of your left foot to the floor and lifting your left hip. Nice steady breath, in and out through the nose. And then back to center. And let's step the right foot forward and bring the left knee down. So square your hips. And just notice that you have so much weight over your left knee that you could actually lift the right foot off the floor. And just keep that and that engagement. And let your arms come up. You can lift your gaze. Find your breath here. And just another breath. And then exhale, bring your hands down. You can walk your foot forward a little bit and just come a little deeper, but keep dropping your tailbone and lifting up through your pubic bone and through your heart. You might even have just a little bit of engagement in your left glutes just to protect your low back and the front of your hip as you come forward. And then you could take a twist, maybe bringing your left hand down to the floor and just opening up. Opening your upper back, letting your head come back, still drawing your right hip back. One more breath. And then bringing that hand down and come back to downward dog. Just making your way through that transition with consciousness. And just take a breath here. And then we'll step our left foot forward. Squaring your hips. Again, bringing a lot of the weight over the right knee so that you could even lift your left foot up. And let your arms come up. And taking a couple breaths here. So if you can let your shoulder blades slide, even as you're reaching and lengthening up. And then exhale, bring your hands down, walk the front foot forward a little bit. Maybe the hands come to the knee. Again, the sense of lengthening up the front of your body, maybe a little engagement in the right glutes. Breathing. And then we'll take the twist. So bring your right hand down and open up into the twist. So you're stacking your shoulder over your hand, but you're pressing into the floor and lengthening up. You can play with the position of your hand. It will affect the position of your shoulder. And then bringing your hand back down. Let's step back to downward dog again. Again, do that consciously. Just kind of paying attention to how you get in and out of these poses. And then we'll exhale and come forward to plank pose, and that might be with your knees down or with your legs up straight, your knees lifted, but keeping the back of your head lifted and lifting belly. Your hips are right in between the crown of the head and the heels. And one more breath. And then maybe with the knees down, just come all the way onto your belly with your elbows by your sides. And let's bring your arms, your elbows out to the sides and draw them together. You could just open your hands and lift your toes. Just keeping your neck long. And you could do a little bit of movement with your legs. You could bring your heels in and out, tapping them together. And then you could try just like flutter kick your feet. And then sweep your hands back again and clasp them. And bring your right leg on top, squeezing your knees together. Taking a couple breaths. And then we'll switch and bring the left leg on top. Squeeze your knees together, reach back through your toes. Left leg on top, just another breath. And release that and just make a little shelf for your head, turning your head to one side, rocking the hips. And then just bend your left leg and just move your ankle joint. So make circles in one direction with your foot. And then switch directions. You can kind of play with your toes, the movement of the toes as you do this. Maybe even try scrunching your toes and doing it. Kind of wants to give me a foot cramp, but. And then switch. And try moving your right ankle joint. Breathing. And release that. And then let's come all the way back up to downward facing dog. Just moving a little bit, you could move your hips a little. You might try coming back to center. You might try lifting the left hand up and back to the sacrum. You can do that with the palm down and kind of open the shoulder. Keep wrapping your right elbow in and pressing strongly into your right hand. And then bring that hand back down and lift your left hand up and back, maybe with your palm down on your sacrum, kind of opening your right shoulder. And breathing. And releasing that hand. And let's step the right foot to the front of the mat and come up into a lunge, or warrior one lunge with our back heel lifted, arms come up. And so your back knee is bent as much as you need to bend it to keep your pelvis from tilting forward. So we're keeping the pelvis perpendicular to the floor, keeping it neutral, the lower back stays neutral. Another breath there. And then step back to downward dog again. Find your breath. You can always bring your knees down and come into prayer. And then we'll step the left foot forward. Keeping the right heel lifted, bending the right knee, and coming into the lunge. Lift your gaze and find your breath. Nice steady breath. One more breath here, come a little deeper, and then step back again to downward dog. And then let's come to our knees. And let's do kind of a side plank variation. So you're gonna just bring your knee, your right knee onto the mat and your right hand either onto a block or onto the floor. You might need something under your hand. And then just, this isn't really so much side plank, but trying to get a big stretch up the right side of your body. So reaching up and over. And there's a little balancing work. Keeping your body kind of perpendicular to the floor, your torso. And then just bring that hand down. And let's do the other side. So plant your left hand and your left knee behind your hand. And then just turn and stretch up and over. So you'll feel it from the sole of your foot all the way up through the fingertips. And it's a little bit of work to balance on your knee. Keeping the neck kind of from your head from totally dropping. And then bringing it back, that arm back up and over. And just circle your hips a little bit. And then we'll try another variation of plank, side plank. So this time you might try it without your knee down. So plant your right hand a little bit in front of the shoulder, and you're going to turn and stack your feet. If you need to, you can always bring your left foot to the floor for more support, or you can stack the feet and open the chest. And then there's further variations as well, but this is a beginner class, so I'm going to stay with that. So it could be with the foot supporting you, or the feet stacked. Whoops. So watch for the head to droop. Keep the head lifted. Keep your hips stacked. Belly draws in. One more breath. And bring your hand down. And just come to your hands and knees. Take a moment in prayer. And then we'll do the other side. So we'll bring the left hand. I'm going to be having my back to you, but that's okay. Left hand in the center, right in front of the shoulder. And then turning and stacking your feet and opening up. Or maybe you have your right foot helping. In any case, your hips are stacked, belly's drawing in, neck stays long. You're kind of lifting the hips. You can keep your arms open like this, or even bring your right arm up and over. And then turning again and come into your prayer. And just finding your calm breathing. You could extend your exhale if your heart is beating a little faster. And then we'll slide forward onto our forearms, and let's do a forearm plank. So your shoulders are right over your elbows, forearms on the floor, and then you're going to stretch back through your heels and bringing your hips right in between your heels and the crown of your head, keeping your head lifting, resisting gravity. Lift the belly, using your whole body, so your legs are working, your core. 2 more breaths. And then just drop your knees and your belly down. And just take a little rest. Rock your hips side to side. And then try your forearm, your Sphinx pose again. And just feel how much easier Sphinx pose is than doing this same pose with your hips lifted. Much less of your body is resisting gravity. And one more breath. And release that. And let's come back up. Keep your elbows tucked by your sides. Let's go back up to downward dog. And let's lift the left leg up, keeping your hips pretty square so you're not lifting your left hip. And you can come up onto the ball of your right foot. Keep pressing into your hands and lengthening up through the heel. And then open the hips, stack your hips, and bend your knee. Feeling that stretch up the left side of your lower belly and the hip. And then straighten that leg up and draw the knee forward for pigeon. And you could do this, an outer hip stretch, like a figure 4 stretch on your back, if your knee is bothering you in pigeon. But just take your time and come probably to your forearms and feel for your hips. Where are your hips in space? Just kind of noticing, finding the breath. And letting your breath, perhaps breathing, using Ujjayi breathing, so slightly closing off the back of the throat so that you can really stay focused on the breath. Feeling the breath in the back of your body, in the back of the rib cage, expanding and contracting. Neck stays long wherever you are. And then you might wish to take a twist. You could bring your right arm across the front of your mat with your hand reaching for your left knee, and then swing your left hand back, bringing your left hand down on your sacrum or your buttock, or maybe all the way around to reach for your left foot, if that's part of your practice. Opening your chest so your right shoulder is stacked over the elbow. Your head is leaning back, so you're opening the chest. One more breath, and then just turning again. And walking your hands in, we'll plant your right hand and reach back for your foot with your left hand if you can. If you can't reach your foot, you can use a strap, or you can also just reach for your thigh. But if you can get your foot, you might kind of pull your ankle back with your hand so that you feel the stretch up the right side of your belly and into the rib cage. You might feel it in your deeper inside in your psoas. Also your shoulder, your left shoulder is opening. Let your breath be full. And then release that. Let's lean to the left and we'll swing the back leg forward and around, bringing it to the outside of the left thigh. You can also straighten your left leg, if that helps you to keep your sit bones planted. And then we'll just move into the twist. You could reach your left hand underneath the right leg. You're just turning your spine, keeping your shoulders open and sliding as you lift up through the crown of the head. Feeling really free and comfortable in your breath. I'm seeing that we have a ballet studio right across the hall, and they just reopened, and there are students there. They're all masked up. So probably good that you're in your home where you can breathe freely. And then turn and release the twist. Take a little counter twist, just an easy counter twist. And then coming back to center, either with your left leg bent still, or you can straighten it. Stack your knees. Sometimes it helps to kind of come forward to do that. So we'll come into steer pose. And it might just be staying right where you are, feeling your sit bones reaching back for the floor behind you. So you're not really lifting them off the floor. You're still grounding. Coming forward with your long spine. So watching for your desire to come forward with your face or head. Just keep it lifted. Come forward with your heart. Taking a few breaths here. It's an intense pose, so just stay with it the best you can. Trying to avoid any like pinching in the front of the hips, so create a little space there if you feel that. Maybe a little lift in your lower belly muscles. And then coming back to your seat, to the center, take a twist with your knee in this position. So you just use your hand on your knee to help you twist, bring your spine upright. Similar but a little different to the last twist we did. And then turning back. And one more thing to try here, which you could again do this with both knees bent. Some people call it fire log pose or double pigeon. So you're going to keep your feet flexed, and your left ankle is going to be on top of your right ankle is going to be on top of your left knee. And you might again be able to come forward. If that's too much, you can also just bring your left foot in front, and you'll probably have more ability to come forward if you do that. Or you can also keep your left leg straight and do that. So it's a lot for the outer hips. So just stay with the breath. And then just back off, and let's just you can straighten your left leg. If you can, you might take your right leg in your hand and just kind of move the joint. You can also maybe take the left foot into the elbow crease if that's comfortable. Just be careful with your knee. Just kind of rocking your leg like a baby. Just feeling around in that hip joint. Staying with your breath. Feels kind of good to me, like I'm almost like I just want to stay here. It's kind of mesmerizing. So we'll just stay here for a couple more breaths. And then we'll release that. And then think about, let's do this, straighten your left leg, and we'll take the twist again, this time with our left leg straight and the right foot on the inside of your left thigh. And if you want, you can try this variation where you reach forward for your foot. I have one student in here who is MJ, and I know she can do this, and then maybe you're wrapping. And then those of you who feel like that's just too much, you could just take your twist again, but with your left leg straight if you didn't do it that way the first time. And just taking a couple of breaths there. And just releasing when you're ready. And as long as we're here, we might as well just let the right knee open out to the side. You can use a strap for this if you want. We're going to come forward towards the left foot. So if you had a strap and that was part of your more comfortable for you, feel free, or you can just reach for the foot or to the floor, but keep your spine long. It's easy to want to come forward with your head. So just come slowly, hinging forward. Breath here, and then I'm going to back it up, and we're going to make our way back to downward dog. So do that as gracefully as possible, and just bend into one knee and the other. And then maybe you could like bend your knees and let your feet your heels kind of go side to side, feeling into the outer edges of your feet and into your lower legs a little differently. And then we'll step the right foot forward. And we're starting with pigeon. Hopefully I can remember all those poses. MJ can help me. If I forget. And just come forward. And just feel into that right outer hip. Might feel quite different than the left side, or maybe it feels very similar. Hard to say. Mine are kind of different. My right hip's usually a little less cooperative. As far as external rotation, it feels like it's always a little bit tighter when I'm externally rotating. So like if I do a cobbler pose with the soles of my feet together, my right knee is always a little higher than my left knee. But there's something structural in my hips too that causes that. I've been feeling that for my whole life. And you might notice as you continue on your yoga path that there are some things about your body that are asymmetrical that you can't really just say that it's a muscular thing. It could be something about the way the joint is put together, or perhaps you've had injuries that have caused some structural difference. And you can't really like push into that. It's just the way it is, and you just breathe through and not worry about it. But then there's also things in my body that have really evened out over time. I used to have a lot more, one of my legs was a lot looser, hamstrings was a lot looser. The back of my leg on the left side was a lot looser, and now they're pretty even. That's just from repeatedly doing stuff over and over again, started to even out. But we do a lot of things in our regular life too that affect that. So, like I use my right arm all the time, so my right shoulder is quite a bit different than my left shoulder. Then taking your twist, so bringing your left arm across the front of the mat, maybe reaching for your right knee with your hand and maybe back for the sacrum, or even all the way around to the foot if you do that. And opening your chest, you're stacking your left shoulder over the elbow, letting your head come back, opening your chest into the twist. Breathing. And then unwinding that, and we'll walk the left hand in and reach back for the right ankle for the left ankle with your right hand. Or maybe just for the leg. But if you have your ankle, just kind of pull the ankle into the hand so you're opening up your right shoulder a bit and you're feeling the stretch all the way up the left belly and deeper in for the psoas, breathing, and release that. And then we'll lean to the right and we'll bring the left leg all the way around to maybe to the outside of your right thigh, letting your sit bones come back to the floor. If you need to straighten your right leg out, by all means, please do that. And we'll take our twist, so bring your right hand underneath the left thigh, left hand comes back behind you, just turning the spine. And breathing. Watching for your right shoulder, kind of wants to hike up sometimes. Let it soften and relax, even as you lift through the crown of the head. And then unwind and just take your easy counter twist. And turning back, we'll stack the knees. Again, it could be with the bottom leg, your right leg could be straight. Otherwise, stacking your knees, coming into steer pose. Again, doing so with your long spine, coming forward with your heart. And trying to avoid a lot of pinching or compression in the front of the hips, so you might engage a little bit in the lower belly. Watching for the chin to come forward, so we call this Jalandhara Bandha, where we kind of draw the chin in for a bit of a lock. Feeling the breath in the back of your rib cage. And one more breath here. And then coming back up, we'll take the twist like we did before, but this time in this position with our legs. So you might just bring your hand onto the knee, or you could even turn your forearm. And then turning back to the front, we'll stack the left ankle on top of right knee, so your lower legs are parallel. Or you can also bring your left leg in front and come forward. Again, not with your head, but keeping the whole body hinging at the hip. I'm going to bring my foot in front because my right knee feels a little bit compromised there. So feeling that stretch in the back of your hips, kind of in a different way in this pose. Being thoughtful about your knees. Never want to do anything to injure ourselves while we're doing yoga, so we have to learn how to back off. So one more breath there. And then we'll come back up, and you might remember we straightened the right leg, or the left leg last time, but the right leg straighten, and then we'll reach for our left leg. It could be with your hands, or maybe you can get the sole of your left foot into the crook of your elbow and your knee into the other elbow and kind of rock your lower leg like a baby, feeling into that hip, just kind of moving it around. Then we'll release it, and let's bring that left foot down to the floor, so you'll have your right leg extended. MJ was reaching up, and then, with the left arm up and around, and taking that twist with a bind, and you might do that too, or you could also just bring your right elbow around your left knee and take a twist like that. So a couple different options. If you're doing what MJ's doing, where she has her left arm wrapping around, then you're twisting in the opposite direction. It's a pretty big bind. And then just turning back again to the front, we'll let the left knee drop out to the side with the sole of your left foot into the inner thigh. And we'll move forward into the hinge of the hip, the forward bend. Breathing. And then just slowly releasing it. And we'll extend the left leg. You can bring your hands back and just let your legs kind of flop open and in and out. So feel the rotation of your femur bones. Feels kind of good. And then maybe do a little pointing and flexing of your feet. And maybe a little bit of, you could try moving your toes, wiggling your toes. It's good to be able to keep movement in your feet. So, especially as we get older, we want to keep our feet supple, and so that you can actually move the different parts of your foot. So try moving just your big toe. It's hard to do. Might be different if you were standing, but, and then maybe you can try wiggling your toes. See if you can wiggle each of your toes. that's something that you can work on, is a little bit of work with your toes and feet on a regular basis. Also using tennis balls to roll on your feet. And then let's bring the soles of the feet together and come into cobbler's pose. So you can decide where you want your feet to be. You could have them in pretty tight towards your groin, or you could have them further forward, your choice. Maybe you're bringing your hands around them to help pull you forward. Or maybe you're just really working on staying upright, letting your knees drop out. Just a couple breaths there. And then we'll come back up, and let's have a ball handy. So most of you who are following along with the Hatha Yoga Center's classes know that we use these basketballs, small basketballs, quite a bit. So have one handy, and let's, you can just keep your feet on the floor, knees bent, and just roll back. Come really slowly. You can kind of round your spine, draw the belly in, and come all the way down, and then stretch your legs out and your arms up above. Stretching. And then let's use the ball underneath the sacrum to do some core work. So bringing it right underneath your lower, kind of like, right, so just the tip of your tailbone is maybe peeking over the ball, and then just move your pelvis first. So just tip and tuck your pelvis. See if you can kind of keep the rest of your body pretty still as you do that. And then pressing the tailbone into the ball, bring your legs up. And your arms might come out to the sides. And then we'll start with one leg at a time. Just inhale your right heel down towards the floor. Press your tailbone into the ball and exhale back up. And then inhale left heel towards the floor. Pressing tailbone into the ball. Exhale back up. And you can proceed like that, or you can bring your heels together and your toes apart and go 2 legs at one time. Remembering to press tailbone into the ball, not moving with momentum, but moving with your muscular strength. So even as you're going down, you're going slowly, not letting gravity help you a whole lot, almost like you're resisting gravity. And then exhale back up. Let's keep going. Let's say like 2 or 3 more times. And perhaps on that last time, you could just let your heels hover above the floor, pressing out through the heels, lengthening your belly. Keep them hovering. And then release your feet to the floor so you're over the ball. You're just draped over the ball. Doing a passive kind of opening of the front of the hips. Get sleepy for this late class when I get down on the floor. I'm just taking a few more breaths over the ball like this. We're going to use the ball again for self-massage, but we're going to set it off to the side because we can't get too sleepy yet. We still have 15 minutes left, so we'll save it for the end. So walk your feet back in and take the ball out and just set it nearby. Let's try it without the ball actually first. We can do the same thing that we just did, arms out to the sides. So we'll inhale right heel towards the floor, press tailbone down and exhale back up, and then inhale left heel down, pressing tailbone down. Exhale back up, so just keep going like that. maybe switching to 2 legs. Or you can just keep it 1 leg at a time, it's fine. So inhaling as your heels come down, pressing tailbone down, and exhaling back up. And then just draw the knees in towards the chest, rocking a little bit, side to side. And then lift your head and draw your forehead towards your knees. You could even reach back and kind of clamp your knees together with your elbows and stretch the back of your neck. And then roll it down slowly. And let's try just having your knees pointing up towards the ceiling. Let your knees go side to side. You could just have your arms out to your sides, maybe going with both of your knees together. And then you could also extend the top leg as you come over for a little bit more. Or maybe both legs, if that's okay for you. Just going side to side. Keeping your shoulders on the floor. And then draw your knees back in. And then let's do the one where arms out to the sides, feet up. We don't lift our sacrum off the floor, so you're just going side to side with the soles of your feet pointing straight up. Sacrum stays on the floor, so just all the way to the point where it wants to lift, but you keep it pinned down. So you'll feel that in your lower belly, I'm sure, and in the obliques probably, trying to move without momentum, but with the strength of your belly and your lower back. And then draw your knees in. And we could do like a little frog pose on our back here, just bringing your knees open. You could bring your hands to the knees. Your feet could be kind of moving towards each other, but you can also try it like this, where you flex your feet. You might have to reach more for your inner thighs. Let's flip it over. Let's do frog on our, turn it over and do it like this, like we usually do. So just kind of feeling those 2 positions in these 2 different ways you're doing it with gravity. 2 different orientations to gravity. Excuse me. You could walk your hands, bring your hands to the floor and just come forward a little bit, coming into a little bit of a back bend. Rolling the shoulders back and down. And just bringing your hips back. And bringing your knees together. And we'll roll back onto our backs again. And then draw your left knee in. Extend your right leg. And just move your knee around a little bit so you're feeling into that hip. Just kind of noticing this is called wind relieving position. And then we'll allow the right knee to come over into a twist. You could extend your left arm and look back over your left shoulder. And if you're like me, I can't touch my knee all the way down to the floor and keep my shoulder on the floor. So I kind of have to decide how to approach it. So if I let my knee come over, my left shoulder's kind of hanging. in space, and I don't really like the way that feels. So sometimes it's nice to take, like you could take your ball and put it underneath your knee for support or a bolster, and then really let your shoulders sink back and open. So just kind of playing around with it. And then rolling back onto your back, and we'll draw the right knee in. And so like, we all have different proportions in our body. Our shoulders are, you know, my shoulders are pretty broad. My hips are also pretty wide. Men tend to have narrower pelvises for obvious reasons, because they don't have to get a baby through. So those things all play into how these poses work for you. So there's not like a right or wrong way for your body to work in the pose. There are things that are pretty general between people. We all kind of have some commonalities, but there's a lot of anatomic variation. Let your right knee come over to the left. And again, figuring out how you want to approach the pose. Maybe you're keeping your right shoulder on the floor. Maybe you're supporting your left knee, or maybe you can touch your left knee down and keep your right shoulder on the floor. So some of that is anatomy, and some of it is, you know, what you do with your body. If you do a lot of yoga, you might get to the point where you have that kind of mobility in your body. But for the most part, just being really curious about it. Yoga is only a portion of yoga is about the pose, the asana. It's only part of it. And we enjoy it, and it's important to us, but it's sometimes we can put too much importance on being able to get our body into a certain position, when in reality it's not that important. So just thinking about your own body. And then just rolling back onto your back, and you have your ball. So let's take the ball and put it under our upper back and support our heads. And just start rolling on the ball. You might be able to bring the ball into your upper shoulders and lift the hips, coming into the supported bridge with the ball under your upper back. The spine. Maybe I like to bring my hips down and go into the side underneath my shoulder, kind of into the lats and the back of the shoulder blade. So just playing with your ball in the ways that you need to, or that feel good. Releasing some of the tension in our bodies with these balls. You might also, some of us can come into fish over a ball, we call it, where we definitely support your head as you bring your head back towards the floor. You might put a couple of pillows under the head, or maybe your head can touch the floor, and then you'll just stay there and breathe. If it's hard to swallow or talk in this position, then just either support your head with your hands or get more pillows under your head so that you can keep your throat and your airway open so you can swallow and breathe. The ball's kind of like in the middle of the back. You can kind of play with that a little bit. This is your thoracic spine. Doesn't have quite as much mobility as our neck or the cervical spine or our lower back or the lumbar spine. Often the middle of our back is more restricted because it's attached to, well, the ribs are there, of course, and so we're protecting all those vital organs in our chest with our rib cage, so we don't want to have too much movement. But we can also work with that, of course. If you're coming back up out of it, just support your head, and then bring the ball down under your lower back, or maybe into your outer hip on one side. I like to bring my ankle up onto my knee, so I'm kind of, you can also, you can approach it from being seated on the ball too. So we'll do each side, just giving it a few moments, breathing, remembering to breathe. This ball is such an amazing thing to have around. Rolling yourself out in different ways every day if you can. If you're doing a one-sided thing or a two-sided thing, come to the other side. Don't forget to breathe consciously and to let your breath be really full and relaxed. Maybe letting go of Ujjayi breathing and just letting it be more natural. And just another moment or two on that side. And then before we come to Shavasana, we could bring the ball underneath our head and just lie on our back and let your head go side to side a few times, just pressing your neck and head into the ball. Whenever you're ready, you can just take that ball out and set it off to the side, just coming back onto your back and taking a few moments to allow yourself to have this final resting pose that we call corpse pose or Shavasana. So letting yourself surrender. I'm going to come back to my seat, but stay on your back and allow yourself to have this time to rest consciously and to be really releasing the weight of your body towards the floor. Feeling the breath coming in and out through your nose here, very softly probably. Just feeling the gentle movement of your body with your breath. The movement of the belly, of the diaphragm. Allowing yourself to have this little moment of practicing dying in this way, allowing your body to just surrender and kind of detaching yourself from it in some way, and just to feel the good feelings of your practice integrating, taking some of that with you as you move forward, leaving some of it behind. And from there, you could begin to roll onto your side, maybe onto your right side, and come back up to a seat like we did at the beginning of class. So finding your seat again and finding your long spine. And just noticing the changes in your body since the beginning of class, and also perhaps in your mind or your emotional state. Knowing that you have access to these calmer, more centered and grounded states of being, you can come back to that state. Sometimes just a few moments of conscious breathing can be helpful. breathing in a balanced way, a little bit of movement. So just finding your way back to your breath, breathing in and out through the nose, taking some balanced breaths, feeling really rooted in your seat and feeling the length up the spine, up through the crown of the head, shoulders relaxed, face and jaw relaxed. You might even imagine here for a moment that you've created like this, kind of like this force field around you, or this aura around you of protection, so that as you move forward into your day or into your evening, there's a sense that you're protected, that you're healthy, your health is protected, that whether or not you're wearing a mask, that you're able to breathe freely and comfortably. And if you feel any sense of claustrophobia or anything that feels constricting when you wear the mask, you might find yourself noticing your breath and coming back to the relaxed breathing that allows you to not feel panicky or claustrophobic. It's a challenge for all of us. Then you might bring your hands together at your heart, and you could bow your head to your own practice, to your own inner teacher, your higher self, or your higher power. Namaste. Thank you so much for coming. Have a really lovely evening or day. Namaste.